Want to watch football without the restrictions of blackouts or cable? Check out expressvpn.com to help you get access to all the live games. Sign up today using the link in the description to get 3 free months. Want to watch football without the restrictions of blackouts or cable? Check out expressvpn.com to help you get access to all the live games. Sign up today using the link in the description to get 3 free months. Yo to Bolt fam, it's the director. Chargers fans, we're almost there, everybody. The NFL draft is what now? 2 weeks away, just under 2 weeks away. Woo, the excitement is starting to build. And you know what? I figured in today's video, with the draft being so close now, right, just around the corner, I felt it was time to finally make some declarations, right? Let's throw down and really show you guys who I'm pumped about in the first round for the Chargers, who I'm hoping the Chargers are going to be targeting. And it's something you guys have been asking me a lot in my last couple of videos. I've been reading the comments. You guys are like, okay, director, we're all excited. We know a lot of these prospects. Who are you rooting for as far as like your priority, right? Who do you hope the Chargers take at pick number 21? And if they're gone, who else would you want, et cetera, et cetera. So I got 10 guys here that I feel I would be very happy if the Chargers were to draft in the first round. But this is also going to be very telling as to who I hope the Chargers go after in the NFL draft this season. Might catch some heat for it. I've been catching heat just for the opinion on it for the past couple of weeks now, but I think I'm finally ready to throw down and really declare who I'm hoping the Chargers are gunning after in the 2023 NFL draft. So before we do jump into that, guys, shout out to the sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. I see you guys out there, man. We've been having some fun. I see you guys on Twitter and even on Instagram lately, which has been really awesome. If you guys want to join in on the action, use code director to match your first deposit and have fun on one of the best, I would say the best fantasy platform on the web. It's been a good time, especially while we're waiting for Chargers football to return here in the offseason. Finally, before we do jump into the video, giveaway time. You guys know it. We're giving away a signed Asante Samuel Jr. jersey to one of my lucky subscribers. All you got to do to be entered for this is hit up the link in the description, follow the instructions there, and make sure you are subscribed. Only subs can win. And of course, we always do giveaways in twos. We're also giving away this signed Sean Merriman jersey. Lights out to one of my crew members as a thank you for supporting the channel. All you got to do to be entered for this is be a member of my crew, and that is it. With that, let's jump into this one. Before we do, hit us up with a like and sub if you do enjoy this Chargers content. Small amount of time you guys take to hit the like, sub, and bell notification helps me out a lot. Let's get into it. Lights, camera, action. My final Chargers first round prospects priority rankings. That's a bit of a mouthful. Basically who I want the Chargers to get in the draft, okay? And we're going to put it by priority. I feel like if my top guy is gone, here's the second guy that I would be super happy with. If he's gone, if both those guys are gone, here's the third guy I'd be super happy with, and so on and so forth. So it should be a good one, guys. We're going to start at the bottom, right? So it's a list of 10 players and work our way up to player number 1. Before we do to get into that, though, let's throw down some honorable mentions. And these are guys, for one, I actually don't know if they're going to be available to the Chargers at pick 21. The other 10 guys, I do believe, have a good shot at being there. Nolan Smith, I feel, before the combine, had a decent shot at being there at pick 21. Then he goes out there, runs a sub 4.4 at the edge position. I don't know if he's going to last to pick 21 anymore, but I just wanted to throw his name out there because if he is available, I think it's another player I'd be super happy with the Chargers drafting at pick 21. Edge could end up being one of those top priorities that we didn't see coming for the Chargers. And speaking of edge, the other guy I have mentioned in our honorable mentions is going to be Myles Murphy, who, again, I'm not quite sure where he stands. I don't know if he's going to be there at pick 21. I think most of the time I see him gone already, but I have seen him available in some mock drafts. And if that were the case, I think Myles Murphy would also be an awesome player to the Chargers take a shot on in order to help their edge position going into the future. So those are my 2 honorable mentions. So with that being said, let's jump into my top 10 players that I hope the Chargers should be targeting here in the 2023 NFL draft. We're going to start at the bottom, pick number 10, and work our way up to my number 1 player I hope we get in the draft. So let's start here at number 10 with Deontay Banks, man. I would be pretty ecstatic if the Chargers made it out of the first round with Deontay Banks, cornerback out of Maryland. This dude's 6 feet tall. And the biggest reason I think you want to buy into a Deontay Banks is for a couple of things. For one, physically, the dude really fits what you want at the cornerback position. He's 6 feet tall, super fast, one of the faster cornerbacks you're going to find in this entire draft. And I do feel like he fits the formula of a Brandon Staley defense, of a Chargers defense. I honestly think the Chargers have been moving away from zone a little bit, especially if you're watching, let's say, the last 6 weeks of the 2022 season, and really putting in and throwing in a lot more press. Man, I think it actually started that game that J.C. Jackson went down. I feel like J.C. Jackson, some of his strengths really do rely around press man coverage. And I think Brandon Staley and the coaching staff are starting to throw a little bit more of that in there, especially considering that their other corners do have strengths in those areas as well. And we started to see a corner being turned by J.C. Jackson in his ability to perform. I feel like the Chargers and Brandon Staley may have stumbled on something they want to continue building as far as a defensive identity. Because if you have yourself a nice defense that's pretty decent in press man, complemented by some really nasty pass rushers like Joey Bosa or Khalil Mack, all of a sudden you're looking like one of the nastier defenses in the league, and one that could really help contain an offense like the Kansas City Chiefs. So Deontay Banks, the reason why he's in my top 10 is because of what he's offering, not just in terms of being able to perform in press man, but also in terms of being able to take away a receiver that normally would burn the Chargers deep. And we've seen that a lot. If you guys are a Chargers fan, you will have known the last couple of seasons, if we're facing a Tyreek Hill, if we're facing a receiver that's pretty much known for their speed, there's always that risk that we're going to get burned over top. And it would be really nice to have a guy that can go out there and really help shut that down, right? We can rely on that speed to match what the offense is throwing at us. So Deontay Banks, I think he's great. Of course, I don't know if he's the top cornerback in this class, but I do think for what the Chargers are doing, he would be an excellent decision that I would be very, very happy with. So DB at number 10. You know what? We're going to continue that trend going into number 9. At number 9, the director would be super ecstatic to see the Chargers draft Brian Branch, safety out of Alabama. All right. And you know what's funny? I don't know if you can really call Brian Branch a safety. I think Brian Branch is just a DB. I think is a defensive back player. That's where he belongs. That's his entire home is in that backfield. And I do believe that the Chargers in particular could be a team that brings the best out of a player like Brian Branch. Branch, we'll say he's more of your nickel guy, right? A nickel corner. That's basically where he lived in the Bama system. And if you're the Chargers, you know how important that position can be to this team. Of course, that position, it's rotated a lot. I think our star player there, ironically, is going to be Derwin James, right? Derwin James is the dude that really throws things off when he's in that nickel position. Those offenses really don't know how to handle it. Now, what would happen if the Chargers decide to bring in a guy like Brian Branch, who really specializes in that area of the field and finds even more flexibility for a guy like Derwin James? I think you're kind of talking turkey all of a sudden, right? Brian Branch, especially with the Chargers now kind of moving on from their slot corner last season. Of course, they do have a lot of slot corners that could play the position right now, but really moving on from Bryce Callahan last season. Bringing in a guy like Brian Branch could not only give you similar production, but even better production at that position, especially when it comes to run defense. Brian Branch is a heck of a run defender from the DB position and in the slot. But it could also give you a nice future-proof plan as a guy being opposite of Derwin James going forward, if that makes sense. So Derwin James being very versatile. I would say Brian Branch is very versatile too. Of course, he's probably going to play a majority of his snaps in the slot, but you can move him around, man. You can put this guy up top. You can put him at safety, his natural position. You can put him at corner, pretty much anywhere. That kind of screams a Brandon Staley kind of guy, right? That's the kind of guy that he wants. He wants that flexibility. He wants that wild card. And Brian Branch may end up being the best player to do that sort of thing in this draft. Is he the top corner? Probably not. Is he the top safety? Maybe, but also likely not. Is he the best slot corner? Probably. I would say yes. Very, very talented player. And I think Brandon Staley in particular would know how to use his skill set. Now, coming in at number 8, and this player, honestly, dude, was probably my number 1 player a couple of months ago. If you guys watched my videos previous, you will know who I am talking about. At number 8, I would be ecstatic if the Chargers took Michael Mayer, tight end, Notre Dame. Man, dudes, if you guys watched my video, let's say a couple of months ago, and how I was harping in Michael Mayer, nothing's really changed, okay? I've just become more convinced in terms of other positions. Let's say other players at other positions, perhaps being more of a value at pick number 21. That being the case, if the Chargers make it out of the first round with Michael Mayer, Chargers fans, you have something to celebrate. Not only does a Michael Mayer go in there and give you a tight end option for your quarterback, Justin Herbert, not just for this season, but for pretty much his entire career, he's also going to provide a let's say, substantial boost to your run game. And we know, based off a lot of comments this offseason, based on the hiring of, let's say, Kellen Moore, on the comments of our head coach, Brandon Staley, this team needs to get better at running the football, right? We need to get that running game up the par. That's going to be ultimately the biggest thing that helps Justin Herbert is getting that running game going. And if you can get a guy to help Justin Herbert in both those aspects, right, through the pass and on the ground, I think you're going to walk out of the first round winners, big winners. Not to mention the potential of what a Michael Mayer could end up being. Guys, he's not, I would say, the craziest blocker in this class, but he's pretty dang good. All right, definitely better than a lot of other receiving tight ends are going to find in this class. Is he as good a receiver, let's say, as a Sam Laporta or a Dalton Kincaid? Maybe, but in a different way. This guy's not very fast, right? He's your possession tight end. He's your safety valve. He reminds me a little bit of Dennis Pitta, who a little bit more recently, maybe even around the same time, like a Jason Witten, right? Like not a super fast dude, but boy, were they super, super reliable. And in the end, they did make a huge difference in the passing game. But the difference that you can make in the run game is also something worth noting as a value to the offense. And that's why a lot of people call this guy Baby Gronk. Not just because he wears number 87, but because he's got some pretty decent blocking skills at the tight end position. If you guys remember Gronk, of course everybody remembers the spectacular grabs, right? Him and Tom Brady shredding it up for years. But really, I think what goes underrated was his blocking skills in the NFL. And I think, although definitely not as good as Gronk, Michael Mayer can definitely bring that kind of aspect to the Chargers offense that honestly we haven't really seen in a long time. He would be better, in my opinion, than a Hunter Henry, who was also very decent in his blocking, but I honestly couldn't tell you the last tight end that really had the blocking skill set on the Chargers like a Michael Mayer would bring. So at pick number 8, I'd be very excited for him. Now at pick number 7, let's bring in another defensive player, right? Just because I feel like the Chargers should definitely go offense in the first round doesn't mean there's defensive players that I wouldn't take. One of them I definitely would take, that I'm actually pretty banking on the Chargers, if available, would very much so be interested in, is Lucas Van Ness. Luke Van Ness! Edge, right? This guy, I don't know, man. I just get a feeling sometimes, right? Because this edge class is very, very good, right? So that top talent, it's not going to be there at pick 21. It's going to be taken likely in the first 10 picks, maybe even 15. But Luke Van Ness, he's kind of a wild card to me. Him and a couple other guys like Will McDonald, like we talked about with Myles Murphy. There could be a very, very nice player still available at pick 21. I think the top of my list in terms of guys I think could still be there is Luke Van Ness. And it's because he is a bit of a wild card, right? I think translating into the NFL, it's not as clear a journey as it is going to be those top echelon guys, but at the same time, he has a lot to offer. Enough to offer that if he were in a different draft class, he would definitely be a top 10 pick in my opinion. He's got a couple of things coming into the pros that are really working for him, right? That bull rush. The dude has a signature bull rush that pretty much nobody in college could figure out, right? They would watch tape on this guy. They'd be like, okay, here he comes. We know his style. We know his technique. We know his signature moves. It did not matter. The dude would constantly just plow over blockers like they were nothing. And it's something that I think, again, bringing into the pros is a very valuable asset. It's something to build on, right? Not a lot of, edge players you see come in, they're like, oh, they got the physical traits. They had pretty good, decent production, this and that. But you really don't know. With this guy, I feel like you at least know one thing, that he's going to bring that power game to the edge position, which is something that the Chargers more recently have added in Khalil Mack, and we know that really worked in Brandon Staley's system. Not only bringing him in this year to rotate in with Khalil Mack is going to be a great idea, but honestly, Van Ness is the kind of player that I feel the Chargers, if needing to move on from Mack in, let's say, the next year or two, I would feel comfortable having play opposite of a Joey Bosa. I feel like that position would still be covered. The dude's kind of a physical freak, man. He's fast for the position. He's big for the position. I think it's one that I would certainly be excited about at pick 21 if he were to fall there and the Chargers say, hey, man, we need to fix up this edge position for the future. He would be a very, very nice addition. So at number 7, Luke Van Ness is going to be my guy. Moving on to my number 6 spot here, man. And spoiler alert, this is going to be my last defensive player on this list. As you guys know, I want offense. I think bringing in Kellen Moore, you're going to want to address that. You want to give him a really, really nice, roster to work with. But that doesn't mean that this guy, my top defensive prospect, if he were to be there at pick 21, I think I take him over even a lot of these offensive guys. And his name's Joey Porter Jr., cornerback, right? Brandon Staley, I think, said last season, and this was right before he went out and got J.C. Jackson, is that you cannot have too many DBs in the pros, right? In the NFL, cornerbacks in particular. And it's because of what the NFL has turned into. It's a lot, for the most part, turned into a pass-first league. And honestly, the Chargers cornerback room, you take a look at it now with what Brandon Staley's done the last couple of seasons, it looks good. Right, it looks good. It doesn't look bad at all. It looks good. Asante Samuel, you got Vato, you got J.C. Jackson, who again will have a wild card depending on how he bounces back, but it looks good. I'm of the opinion that it could look better, right? And maybe it doesn't look as good on the surface, or as it does on the surface because of the J.C. thing. Maybe J.C. doesn't come back and plays to that full potential, maybe nowhere close, right? He was struggling before that injury anyway. Maybe the Chargers don't have a plan for Vato after this season. What are they going to do in the cornerback position in 2024? I think because of those aspects of the position, but more because of the skill of a Joey Porter, I would be very excited if the Chargers took a defensive player in Joey Porter at pick 21. And again, my top guy that I would pick on defense, outside of, let's say, like a Nolan Smith, right? One of those guys I don't think is going to make it there. Now, Joey Porter, 6'2", he's decently fast, right? Like, not super fast, but decently fast. He's not going to be Deontay Banks, right, who is also on this list, but he's decent. The biggest reason you're buying into a Joey Porter is, one, because of those physical traits. This dude would be so nasty in a press man system because of that size. A bit of nice strength behind him, too, for the position as well. But I feel like that IQ, that football IQ, the ability to position himself, the ability to read plays, the ability to adapt to the NFL is why you buy into a Joey Porter. Yes, there's other cornerbacks that I think, like Gonzalez, that would be maybe better than Joey Porter. But I think, I mean, how far are we away from those top 2 or 3 guys in the draft and Joey Porter? I think the physical aspect, or the physical traits that he's bringing to the NFL, very desirable. I think the instincts, again, something that you can't really teach in the NFL, I think very desirable. And I just think the system that he would thrive in with the Chargers would also be a very successful way to translate his skill set into the NFL. I don't know. I see a lot of upside with Joey Porter. He's my number 1 defensive player that I think will be there or could be there, that I would be happy with the Chargers drafting at pick 21. Joey Porter would be so nasty with Brandon Staley and this team. All right. Now let's move into the top 5. I'm going to get roasted a little bit in this video. I can already tell, but I'm going to stick to my guns, all right? And I'm going to tell you guys my top 5 players, and they're all in offense, who I hope the Chargers take, okay? At number 5, who I'm hoping the Chargers select, it's going to be Quentin Johnson. Let's start with some receivers here, okay? And if you guys follow Steve Hagland, right, of the Guilty as Charged podcast on Twitter, he just put out a couple of days ago, maybe even yesterday, that it sounds like the Chargers might be prioritizing wide receiver in those early picks, okay? And because of that, I wanted to give you guys, let's say, my top 3 receivers, well, in the top 5 here, right, who I would be happy with the Chargers taking with that 21st pick. It doesn't mean that there's other guys I wouldn't be happy with, but these are my top 3, okay? Quentin Johnson is gonna crack that top 5 of players for me, and it's because I think, honestly, he could end up being the best receiver from this class. And I think, honestly, it has a lot to do with his measurables. Yes, the dude is 6'4". He's freaky fast for his size, and he has that ability to become, let's say, a wide receiver 1 down the road. Whereas a lot of these other guys, I think, are going to thrive in the NFL as slot guys, maybe wide receiver 2s. I think maybe there's 1 or 2 guys that I still think could be wide receiver 1s at some point. But Quentin Johnson, he just fits the mold of what you're asking your number 1 wide receiver to do. Not to mention, in where the Chargers need a little bit of help at the wide receiver position, it's going to be speed. And that's why I like Quentin Johnson so much. He's not just bringing speed. He's bringing different aspects in terms of a unique weapon for Justin Herbert, right? He's not going to be Mike Williams out there where you can rely on him on, like, the contested catch kind of situations quite as much, although I do think that ability exists with Quentin Johnson. But he is going to have the ability to use that size a little bit versus, let's say, other DBs, undersized DBs in the NFL. He is going to have the ability to get himself open, maybe a little bit more than a Mike Williams. He is going to have that ability to stretch the field and really utilize that arm of a Justin Herbert. I like Quentin Johnson a lot. I think he's bringing enough in terms of skill set into the pros that you can really build a very nice, let's say even wide receiver 1 in the future. But at the very base level, he brings that speed that the Chargers need, as well as that ceiling. I think it's very attractive. So I'm going to say Quentin Johnson, number 1, could be the number 1 wide receiver of this class. He's going to be my number 5 player on this list. At player number 4, right? We're getting up there now, man. This is where I think the hazing might begin on this director's list. At number 4, I would be very happy if the Chargers went out there at pick number 21 and selected Jordan Addison. Okay, and I know there's a lot of people out there that they might be about it, right? They might be about it, but there's other wide receivers I think they would take maybe ahead of him. Maybe if you're wanting a wide receiver, it wouldn't be Jordan Addison at all. We've started to see this name slide a little bit, at least in mock drafts. I think it's a bunch of smoke, for one. I think a lot of managers out there are not going to let that happen. I think even though there are, desirables that you're going to find in other players, I feel like Jordan Addison, to me and to a lot of people, might be the most complete wide receiver in this entire class. All right. It's not to say that he's perfect. I think the biggest things working against him are going to be his size, maybe a little bit thin, right? It's going to be tough for him to play in like the press man world of the NFL. I think it's going to be a little bit tough for him to go up there and contend for catches versus guys like Pat Surtain, because let's be honest, Jordan Addison, not the biggest guy out there, but my goodness, man, you look at a guy that maybe has, I wouldn't say a Keenan Allen ceiling in terms of route running, but very, very good route runner. I would say, like, we all talked about Devontae Smith, right? Coming into the pros. I would say around there is what I'm feeling like it's going to translate into the pros with, and he's very, very good. Right, you pair him up with a Mike Williams as well. I think it's a really good compliment. He does have a bit of speed, right? Not the fastest guy, definitely not the fastest guy, but he's got some speed that you can still utilize. Definitely like one of the better guys on the Chargers roster. He would be in terms of speed. But I think the reason you drafted Jordan Addison is because you're not only asking your wide receiver or your investment in the first round to contribute this year, and let's say adding a bit of speed, availability for your quarterback and getting open, but you're also helping yourself out for tomorrow, right? The 2024 situation. Keenan Allen, we know the situation for. I think he's going to be a cap hit upwards of $34 million next season. And if I'm being honest with you guys, I don't know if Keenan's going to be here next year. You see a lot of situations with wide receivers, let's say like a DeAndre Hopkins, right? Where you just get to that point where you kept kicking the money down the road that you just can't afford. It's built up too much. And in Keenan Allen's instance, it's going to be $34 million. You would be in a much better position to move on, save over $20 million in cap, and let a young, cheap contract step in. And if I'm going to trust any wide receiver from this class to provide any semblance of route running that a Keenan Allen offered for Justin Herbert, I think Jordan Addison would be that guy for me this season. Now, the Chargers could certainly say, hey, we're going to kick this down the road to next season. We're going to really go in for wide receiver if we have to let go of Keenan Allen. But I say if you're at pick 21 right now, the receivers in that area look pretty decent. I think Jordan Addison could end up being a very good investment, not just for this season, but next season, okay? And seasons going forward. I think him, Mike Williams, and Josh Palmer definitely keeps that wide receiver room very strong. And Jordan Addison, heck of a talented player. I think he's going to thrive in the next level for sure. And I think a lot of it is on the back of his ability to get open for his quarterback. Okay. And I think the Chargers, of course, this guy out of USC, I think they know that. And I think they've got some ties to him already. So I think Jordan Addison's a very likely player the Chargers target at pick 21. All right. Let's get into the top 3. At number 3. Spoiler alert, it's another receiver. All right. And because I do think the Chargers, like Steve said, are very much so gunning for a wide receiver in the early rounds. At number 3, my top wide receiver I hope the Chargers go after is going to be Zay Flowers. All right. Now, it kind of depends on who you ask, right? On where Zay Flowers sort of lands. I've seen some people say at very late first round, early second round. Some people, late were saying very, very, early second round. And then other people are saying this could be the number 1 wide receiver this draft. And I think all those things could be true, right? But it also kind of depends on where he goes. We've seen players with his skill set go into systems that really don't work, that don't have a quarterback play, that they kind of fizzle out. The Chargers would be a different situation for Zay Flowers. And that's why I think it would be such a strong pick at pick 21. Now, first off, Zay Flowers, again, he's not John Ross. He's not Tyreek Hill. He's not a burner. But he is fast. He's pretty dang fast. He would instantly, I think, be the fastest player on this Chargers roster at wide receiver, which is saying something. But again, I say this all the time about this player, and I say this a lot about players that I'm hoping the Chargers bring into the fold at receiver to bring that speed, is that he's more than just speed, right? His ability to get open is very impressive. His separation skills are very impressive. It's because of the way that he utilizes his agility, his shiftiness, I would say, is why you buy into a Zay Flowers. What good is a speedy wide receiver if we can't get him the ball? And I think Zay Flowers could end up being the easiest player to get the ball to that also possesses the kind of home run speed that you need to take the ball all the way to the house, right? And that's something the Chargers offense just doesn't have right now. We don't have a weapon that could really just break out and take it all the way to the house. It really is Justin Herbert, traditionally working down the field and putting a lot on the quarterback to make that happen. I would like to start adding aspects to the offense that could really help him out in that aspect. And I think Zay Flowers certainly has that skill set. He's going to get open for Justin Herbert. He's going to give us flexibility in the slot and the outside. He's going to be able to stretch the field better than almost any wide receiver in this class. Of course, there's guys, if we don't take a receiver in the first round, that I think the Chargers could maybe even trade up for in the second round, like a Jalen Hyatt, that could do similar things in stretching the field. But I think if you're looking for a guy that's going to bring both speed and production and the ability to get open, we'll say too, it's going to be Zay Flowers. I think, again, he's not the biggest guy. He's not the fastest guy, but he's the perfect combination of skill sets that I think is going to help Justin Herbert the most from the wide receiver class this season. So Zay Flowers, he's my number 1 wide receiver that I hope the Chargers target at pick 21. Finally, let's get into my last two guys, my top 2, okay? And if you guys have been following my videos this season, you know there's 2 names out there that I haven't said yet that honestly would be no surprise to see on the top of my list, okay? So just question is, who's at the top of my list? Well, okay, let's go in here to pick number 2. My number 2 player that I hope the Chargers draft at pick 21. Hold on to your butts. It's going to be Dalton Kincaid. All right. We talked a little bit about the tight end position with Michael Mayer. Let's double dip here with a Dalton Kincaid, who I would be just so ecstatic if the Chargers drafted in the first round. Okay. Now, first off, with this position and the position coming up next, I want to highlight that if there's a season that the Chargers take a position like tight end early in the draft in the first round, it would be this year. And it's because the Chargers don't have as many needs as we've seen in the past, right? If the Chargers had a glaring need at right tackle, right? Maybe you consider a different player. If the Chargers had a glaring need at cornerback, maybe you take a different player. As of right now, the roster looks pretty decent, and you can afford yourself for the first time in forever to take a luxury pick. And if you're going to take a luxury pick, I'm taking a luxury pick for my quarterback, Justin Herbert, for my brand new offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore, right? I'm going in there and I'm making sure that we get one of the top players at their position that can make a difference on this offense. Let's just be honest. The offense needs a little bit of help after last season. And to me, Dalton Kincaid is one of the top players that can improve this offense overnight, okay? And when I say overnight, it doesn't mean instantaneously, the day one he steps on the field, we're going to see, 100 yards and a touchdown. No. I think tight end, and I think even Dalton Kincaid is going to take a little bit of time to get into the groove of things. It's going to take all the first season. Maybe. I think more likely than not, he would contribute within the first 6 weeks, right? You would start seeing that turn to where him and Justin Herbert are building that crazy good chemistry, right? But to me, Dalton Kincaid, his skill set at the tight end position is exactly what the Chargers want. The Chargers, like I said before, I couldn't remember the last time we had a blocking tight end. It's because that's not really what the Chargers do with the tight end position. They use that position as another receiver. And if you get a guy like Kincaid, who is both fast, crazy good as a pass catcher, right? Crazy good at getting open for a tight end. I think you just found Justin Herbert, his guy to grow with over the course of his career. right? And I think in today's NFL, you're seeing a lot of quarterbacks come into the league with that guy at tight end, right? You got a Lamar Jackson and a Mark Andrews. That's really been a thing that's helped him maintain one of the top quarterback, rankings in the NFL. You got Patrick Mahomes, of course, with Travis Kelce. That's going to maintain a top, connection for a long time in the NFL. And then there's other guys that are good tight ends that just don't have the quarterbacks, like let's say Kyle Pitts, that honestly just went into a system that didn't work out. I think, again, the Chargers are going to be a system that works. And that's why I do think Dalton Kincaid could make an immediate impact in his rookie season for the Chargers. And not only that, but give Justin Herbert that weapon for the rest of his career. I think we need to give him his guy, right? We got Keenan Allen, who's been his guy, but Keenan's not going to be around forever, right? I would also say the second his guy on the roster would be Austin Eckler, which, again, we don't know how long he's going to be on the roster. I feel like Dalton Kincaid could be his guy going forward. I think Herbert to Kincaid touchdown could be something that we grow fond of, in a similar light that we heard Rivers to Gates touchdown in the heydays of the late 2000s, right? The mid-late 2000s for Chargers fans. I really feel like, I don't know, just strong in my bones that Kincaid and Justin Herbert are kind of made to play together. And that's why I think he's my number 2 player on this list, okay? Dalton Kincaid would be such an awesome weapon for Herbert for the rest of his career. Now, finally, to wrap up this video, and I'm ready for all the beef. I'm ready for all the shade, man. My number 1 player that I hope the Chargers, number 1, is available to them, and number 2, pull the trigger on if available at pick 21, is going to be this beast of an offensive weapon, Bijan Robinson. Now, I get it. I've talked a lot about taking a running back in the first round. I think a lot of people just know it's not a good idea to take a running back in the first round. The running back position and the way it's valued in the NFL is so bonkers and so backwards, but so justified that taking a running back in the first round would be considered a huge, huge risk. That being said, I don't care. Bijan Robinson is that special of a prospect to me. Now, of course, you cannot expect this out of this man when I say this next thing, okay? But it is something noteworthy. When I first started, let's say, drawing comparisons to Bijan Robinson in terms of who he reminds me of in the pros, I would have told you months ago that he reminds me of a Christian McCaffrey kind of mixed with a Saquon Barkley. Dude's crazy, right? Crazy good on the ground, crazy good through the air. That's the biggest thing that you're getting. I think premium in terms of what he brings to the NFL is his ability as a pass catcher. He's a crazy good pass catcher as well as a crazy good ground runner, right? He's just the best of both worlds. That being said, more recently, and I think it was the RAS score that brought this to light, Bijan Robinson has been compared very freakishly closely to that man right there, LaDainian Tomlinson. And if you go back and you look at Bijan Robinson in Texas his last few seasons, you will see why he's being compared to LaDainian Tomlinson. I honestly felt so foolish when I think it was the RAS score came out and it showed Bijan next to LT. I was like, oh my God, yes, I see it. Now, that being said, I don't think there's ever going to be another LT on the Chargers, maybe in our lifetimes, right? LT is a one of a kind. But if we can get close, I think we're in business, dudes. And that's why I feel like Bijan Robinson at pick 21 could end up being worth the risk of signing a quarterback or a running back in the first round. And I also think he's the kind of talent that, again, you don't see every day. He's a freakishly good talent. This running back class is exceptionally good, and it's highlighted by one of the best running backs I've ever seen in the NFL draft. I think that's why you can take a shot on him, because I don't think he's going to be a one-and-done guy. We've seen some really good running backs taken in the first round not reach an extension with their current team after their rookie deal. I think Bijan's that kind of talent where, yeah, you're going to pay him. He's going to be with the team a long time. He could become an identity of the offense. If you got a guy as talented as Bijan that can keep that receiving threat from the backfield alive with Justin Herbert, while also, honestly, if you want to help your running offense, he provides your best shot at giving yourself a boost there. I think the Chargers' run blocking, maybe not the best for Bijan's style of run. It doesn't matter. It's good enough. Bijan is a good enough player where he elevates not just the offensive line, the run game, but the offense entirely. All of a sudden, Bijan, even in his rookie season, is going to be a name that people need to pay attention to on the defense. I believe in Bijan Robinson. I'm pounding the table for Bijan Robinson. I'm part of the bandwagon for Bijan Robinson. A lot of people will tell me, no, on Bijan Robinson, please don't use that pick in the first round if you're the Chargers on a running back. I understand that, but on my final first-round prospect priority ranking, it's going to be Bijan number 1 for me. That's who I hope the Chargers end up with. And again, if he's not available, it's Dalton Kincaid. If he's not available, it's Zay Flowers, then Jordan Addison, then Quentin Johnson, then Joey Porter, etc., etc. But I feel Bijan would probably make the biggest difference in a win-now Chargers, more likely than any other player in this draft. A player that I think that can make the biggest impact now as well as into the future is probably Dalton Kincaid, then etc., etc. But I think Bijan, even in his rookie season, could help the Chargers immensely on the ground game in his rookie year. I like it a lot. So you guys in the comment section below, let me know your top 3, right? You don't have to go all top. You could go top 10 if you want, but let me know your top 3 in terms of priority. Who do you want number 1, 2, and 3 in the NFL draft? And we can all root for that coming up here in the next couple weeks in the NFL draft. Let's go, baby. 2 weeks away, guys. Mark your calendars. If you guys aren't going to the draft, you don't have a bunch of buddies coming over to the house, be sure to check out my channel. We'll be live covering the draft with, I'm sure, hundreds of Chargers fans. It'll be an awesome time. We've done this for the past couple of seasons now. It's one of the biggest events of the year. I'm super excited about it. Here are my top 10 guys I'll be rooting for. If it's not one of these guys, we're hoping to trust the coaching staff. And then again, as soon as that's over, now that we have the top 10 declared, we can really start hammering the second round and beyond. The middle rounds, I think, are going to be very important for this draft class, in particular for the Chargers, too. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. This has been The Director. If you like what you saw here, hit us up with the like and sub on your way out. We'll see you next time. As always, bolt up and stay frosty. I'm pounding the table, man. Bijan Robinson, that's who the Director wants in 2023.